What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Killer Drone, and welcome back to the Minecraft Farming Guide. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at squid farms. So like we do all of our farming guide episodes, if you just want to know how to build the farm, go ahead and skip to this time code that is on screen now. But if you want to know about the science behind the farm, continue watching from here. So I guess let's start off with why you would want to build a squid farm to begin with. Squid is one of the few resources in the game that gives black dye. In fact, between Squid Ink and Wither Roses, they are the only way to get black dye in the game. Now, Wither Roses are very effective at getting you black dye, but it's not as fast as a good squid farm. Really, I would only recommend building a squid farm if you need a ton of black dye for one of your builds. Something that's going to use a ton of dark prismarine or any of the gray concretes or black concretes is a good reason to build a squid farm. Otherwise, I recommend using a Wither Rose farm because then you have Wither Roses as well as you have the black dye. So let's talk about the spawning mechanics of the squid. Squid can spawn in two places in the world. It can spawn in any type of ocean, as well as it can spawn in river biomes. An ocean is not going to be really useful in this case because that is a lot of water to get rid of and is going to make it a lot of work in order to set up a simple squid farm. However, a river is a lot easier to get going. You just have a little bit of water to remove and then you're good to go. Okay, so we've decided that we're going to use a river because draining the water from the ocean is just going to be too much. What type of river do you want? Well, you're going to want a river that is landlocked. You do not want a river that is close to an ocean biome because remember, any water that is close by in an ocean, you also will have to drain. So you want to set up your squid farm somewhere in a river biome that is surrounded by land. You do not want any oceans nearby. In fact, you also don't want any other rivers nearby. I picked this location for my squid farm in my first Let's Play world because there's no water in that direction for a river, and there's very little water in this direction for a river. You can see that I drained just this little section out, and all of that back there is not close enough for the squid to spawn in. So if I stay right around this area, all the squid spawn right there in my trap. Also, you don't have to worry about draining any water that is not in the river biome. As you can see over here, I have a little bit of a pool of water nearby our squid farm, but because this is not in the river biome, it cannot spawn squids. So you are fine with leaving these pools of water. But anything that is connected to this river all needs to be drained. So I had to drain all of this, wrap around there, and then right through here is where I had to drain. All the other water that is found normally in different biomes, you don't have to worry about. We'll talk about how far you need to drain from your farm a little bit later on in the video when we get to the tutorial, but it's actually not that much as long as you have some sponges. So when you're creating a squid farm, you really want the only thing spawning in your farm to be squid. That means that we need to get rid of things like salmon and cod from spawning in our farm. In order to do that, we need to know how they spawn. Salmon and cod can spawn in any water that is 3 tall. So anything that is 3 deep, salmon and cod can spawn in a river biome. In order to get rid of all of these guys and only have squid spawn, all we need to do is restrict the height to being too high. This means that the salmon and the cod cannot spawn, and only the squid will be able to spawn in this area. This means that all of our channels will end up being only too high. So there are 2 ways that you can do this style of farm. You can either do a grid pattern where you make 1 wide cells by 2 high in a grid pattern across your area, or you can do the way that I like to do it and make big channels of the exact same thing, 2 high water flowing down into an air block. These are just temporary blocks here where the cobblestone is. And this will just be long strips. I like doing this method because I think it looks a bit cleaner, whereas the grid method looks a bit messy to me. It doesn't matter, both of the rates for the farm will be about the same. However, this one I find it a little bit easier to place the fence gates, whereas this in the grid pattern I find to be a little bit more difficult. But you can do it either way that you want to. One last thing that you should know about squids is they are not limited by how deep the river goes. If your river is shallow, it doesn't matter as long as it's still a river biome. Squid will actually spawn from Y level of 46 all the way up to level of 62, which is sea level. So here we are in a brand new world where I am going to begin constructing our squid farm. Now notice we are in a jungle biome this time, but that does not matter. As long as we have a river that is landlocked, it doesn't matter what the surrounding biome is, as long as it's not an ocean or another river. As long as we don't have anywhere else for squid to spawn, this will work perfectly. So now what you're going to want to do is find a section of the river that is relatively straight. You don't want something that has a lot of twists and turns in it, because then your long water channels will end up going into the jungle biome or whatever biome is near your river, and then you won't be getting spawns in that area. So you want to pick a cross section of the farm that is all in the river biome. So now what I've done is I have marked out a piece of the river with some oak planks, and this is going to be the area that my squid farm will be in. It's a good cross section. It's pretty much all in the river biome, as you can check here, which means that pretty much all of this is going to be spawning space for squid. So now that we have the river area marked out, we now need to start looking at the draining process. What we need to do is drain out all of the water blocks in rivers and oceans in a 128 block area from where the player will be AFKing. So if you have some type of building or anything like that around this area that you plan on AFKing in, go into that building and count out 128 blocks in each direction from the player. That is the area that you need to clear out water from. So in order to give you a visual of exactly how far you need to drain, I installed a data pack from Vanilla Tweaks that is going to show you the area around the player that things can spawn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run function ss create blue sphere, and this is our center point. This is where we are going to be AFKing as the player. This innermost sphere, this light blue block sphere, is the area around the player in which nothing can spawn. So as you can see here, our AFK spot is a little bit too close to our squid farm for it to be fully effective. So I'll probably want to move this back a little bit that way. But the lighter blue sphere that is all the way out here, this is the area where things can spawn from the player. So if that's where we're AFKing, we need to drain the river all the way out to around this area on this side. And then in the other direction, we need to drain out the river all the way to just past where this jungle temple is on the river on this side. Now remember, you do not need to drain anything that is not a river biome. So if we come over here into this area, you'll see we have a lot of water spots all through this area. However, if we come into this area and we hit F3, you can see that this is actually still part of the jungle biome. This is not a river, so I don't need to worry about draining this. No squids are going to spawn here anyway. So I've moved our AFK spot a little bit farther away. That way, this inner sphere does not touch the squid farm, which means this thing will be active as long as we are in that general area. So now it is time to start draining. You can remove the spawning spheres if you don't want to use them, and you can just count out 128 blocks in each direction. But no matter, you have to get your sponges ready, and you just need to start draining this river however you want to. I'm in creative mode, so it's going to be relatively easy, but if you are in survival, there are a couple of tricks to make this a little bit easier. So in order to make this draining a bit faster in survival, what you would want to do is get some type of gravity block, whether that be sand or gravel, doesn't particularly matter, but what you're going to want to do is make some sand walls right here along the river, and you're just going to make walls to section off an area. Then, once you have this wall stretching all the way across the river, count 4 blocks in each direction, and put your next wall down. Then once you have both of those walls in place going all the way across the river, then you just put your sponge in all the way along in order to clear it out. This makes it to where the water doesn't flow back in and create sources again, allowing you to slowly inch your way down the river, draining it all out. So as a demonstration, you would have something that looks a bit like this. You'd come along with your sponges and just place them a little bit into the water like so, and then come on the other side, place a little bit into the water like so, place down here until it's completely drained out. Also remember that in order to dry out your sponges, you don't actually need to put them in a furnace anymore. You can go to the nether and just place them down and then pick them back up and they will be dried off. So once you have all of the water drained from the area, what you're going to want to do is come back to where you marked out your farm earlier with oak planks and dig that area down to Y level of 45. This is going to be the bottom of the spawning area for your farm. And now we're just going to build it up from here. So now that you have your area dug out down to Y level of 45, what you're going to want to do is come over to one of your corners and just start placing fence gates side by side each other all the way down to the other end of your farm. Make sure that you come back and open up all of these fence gates, that way the squid can fall through them here in just a minute. Next, what you need to do is also go 2 high on each of the sides. And this is basically how you're going to make your canals. Just like so, all the way down, place your fence gates in, and you should end up with something that looks a bit like a trench here in the middle. In order to get all of your water in, what I recommend is putting some type of temporary block down like so, something like cobblestone or something like dirt, something that's easy to break, and then come with ice behind that and put your ice on the top layer just like so. Make an L in the corner and then go right beside it all the way down and then make an L shape at the other end. Whenever you break this ice, it will fill in this entire channel. Then you can come back and break the temporary blocks underneath so that the water is actually flowing down and pushing the squid downward. So for example, you would have something that looks a bit like this, your channel completed with some temporary blocks underneath and ice on top in a kind of L shape. Then what you'll do is come through and remove all of your water just like so. And as you can see, all of the water is filling in nice and evenly all the way along here. Once you have all of the water in, you just come back through and remove all of your temporary blocks in order to get the water to flow down. Now, whenever the squid spawn in this top level of water, they will be pushed down into your killing chamber that we'll add in just a minute. And as you can see, I already have an entire floor of this thing done, and we now have some squid spawning in here. Now, in order to get faster rates, what you're going to want to do is have multiple levels of this exact same thing stacked on top of each other. So once you have one level in like this, you're going to want to come back through and just start with your fence gates once again and go all the way down just like so. I find it easier whenever I'm in survival to put all of the water in dead last. Go ahead and put in all of your fence gates, put in all of your temporary blocks, and then come back through and put the ice and the water in. Okay, so we now have 3 layers of this farm in place, and as you can see, if we fly up here above the farm, you'll start seeing squid spawn in relatively quickly down there. However, in order to get more squid spawning in more rapidly, we need to kill the squid that are spawning in. The faster we can kill them, the more that can spawn in. So we're going to add a drop below this farm in order for the squid to fall through and die instantly on impact. Also, I only did this farm as being 3 high, but you can go higher if you want to. Say you're playing on a server and you need a ridiculous amount of Squid Ink to sell to your friends, you can add an additional 3 layers on top of this to get yourself all the way up to Y level of 62. Anything higher than Y level 62, squid will not spawn, so really you can only squeeze in about 3 more levels on top of this. At the end of the video, I will show you a farm that I made that had all of the levels in it, but this farm I'm just going to keep simple and we're going to keep it at 3 layers. So once you have all of your levels in, you're going to want to get in a killing platform. In order to do that, what I recommend is coming down to the bottom of your farm and digging out an additional 15 blocks. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you should end up at Y level of 30. And now you should have something that looks a bit like this. Raining squid all over the place. You'll have a few that get stuck every now and then, but the second that they start to move, they'll get caught in that flowing water and they will fall to their death. Any type of cave or anything that you run into, you can go ahead and seal off, maybe light it up so that you don't have to deal with hostile mobs in the area in the future. But overall, you're not going to need any caves or anything like that in this area. And as far as designing the farm as well as the killing mechanism, you're pretty much done. That is it for killing the squid and getting squid ink. But now you're going to want to collect up the ink sacs in some way in order to put them into chests. And I'm actually going to go over to my other worlds in order to show you guys that, because there's a couple of different methods that you can use. So this is my full tier squid ink farm. It has the full 6 layers in that you can have, and as you can see, it produces a ridiculous amount of squid as well as squid ink because they're pretty much constantly falling in this area. Now, if we go ahead and head down below, I will show you guys the pickup system that we used here. However, I don't really recommend this one unless you're building the full size squid ink farm, because this is a little bit messy. Basically what we have is a couple of hopper minecarts on each and every line, and as they pass through this area, they are dispensing all of the squid ink into hoppers down below. As they pass over here, they release a couple of squid ink every time, and they pick it up from the floor that is down here. We also have the exact same system on the other side, where it is also picking up the squid ink from hoppers around this area, and it's sending them up into an item elevator that goes around back. Like I said, this is a very messy way to do it, and if I were to redo this farm, the collection system is pretty much the only thing that I would change. Let's show you guys the better version of this. So we are now on a creative backup of my current survival Let's Play world. And as you can see, we have another squid farm set up because I absolutely love making these things, but this one is slightly different. This one has a 2 high setup, so it's only 2 high instead of 3, but it is 4 wide. So we have a good amount of spawning space here, but not quite as much as the tutorial one. Anyway, if we go ahead and head down below, this is a much better and much cleaner collection system than the one that I just showed you on my old Let's Play. What we have here is 2 hopper minecarts covering the entire platform and being double hopper unloaded here in this area. So what we have is we have 2 hoppers in this area pointing down into a chest with a comparator coming out of that hopper with a lever on the side of this block, a redstone torch on the back side of that block, powering this block above that goes into another comparator, into this block that goes into the another powered rail. So basically this is our unloading system. It double unloads all of the ink sacs, and then all of the minecarts just go back and forth until they eventually loop around back into this area here to be unloaded. I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and go into game mode spectator. That way you guys can see exactly how the minecart tracks work. As you can see, it goes all the way down to the end, comes back the other way, all the way back here, except it's not quite to where those rails are, and then goes back the other way, back and forth, back and forth. The very last row comes all the way along, and then back even to where that unloading system is, and then comes right back into here. Super, super nice, super clean setup, and uses a whole lot less hopper minecarts moving around, so it's a lot more lag friendly as well. So in case you guys didn't quite understand that hopper minecart unloading system, I'm going to go ahead and walk you guys through how that works real quick because I know those things can be kind of a pain to follow. So you're going to start with a double chest wherever you want it to be unloaded at. Have 2 hoppers going into that chest. Out of the back of this back hopper, you're going to set a redstone comparator facing into some type of block. Doesn't matter what it is. A redstone torch on the back of that block. Another piece of stone, any type of block on top of that torch, a redstone comparator running back into another block, just like so, with a powered rail on top of that hopper, and then a regular rail on top of that hopper. That is a double hopper unloading system. And that is actually it. This is a super simple farm to set up. It does require a fair amount of digging, but if you do need a lot of black dye for some reason, then this is the farm that I recommend making. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. You guys have a great day.